Hello, and welcome to one of the biggest updates of Darkest AFK since Sacred Auras were released. Today, we'll be discussing the hero rebalance in patch 2.240, seeing a much appreciated boost to a lot of the long-standing heroes. We shall discuss each hero by class, reviewing the update and giving our recommendations.
Without further ado, our first hero in the Damager class is Agra. Agra has received an update to her critical ultimate effect, going from a 125% attack increase now to a mighty 200%, with its healing effect increased from 50% of the damage dealt to 66% of damage. Agra also receives an update to her Sacred Aura, with every third hit against her now dealing 100% of her attack to all enemies, up from 50%. Agra has received a very complimentary update, with her increase to attack from her critical ultimate affecting the increased damage from her Sacred Aura. She could have some serious potential for damage and a very reasonable sustainability. We look forward to seeing an orchid surge amongst the player base. Our next updated damager is Avalon. Avalon has an increase to his critical ultimate effect, going from 250% damage to 300% damage per eagle, while also increasing the attack and defense buff to allies from 25% to 30%. This might seem like a small bonus, but especially considering his multiple revives, each giving enough energy to cast an ultimate, meaning Avalon is as dangerous as ever. Chaz 2 has received an increase to his critical ultimate effect, going from 450% damage to 500% damage, and applying a mark that now lasts 6 seconds up from 5. This mark increases damage to the target by 50%, up from 40%. Chaz also receives an increase to his Sacred Aura, going from 150% damage to each target to 250% damage. This was an unexpected boost for Chaz, directly increasing his damage in all areas of the game. Drowsy has had the most significant change in my opinion, gaining a boost to his critical ultimate, dealing an additional 100% damage at all levels, 600%, 500% and 400%. However, his most significant change comes to his Sacred Aura, now affecting 2 enemies per wave, which is huge alone as this further increases the damage from his ultimate, but not only that, he takes massively reduced damage back from these enemies, down from 25% to 5%, and should they die, they now heal Drowsy for 15% max HP each, up from 10%, meaning a large increase in his own self-healing too. Lilith is already another unsung powerhouse, however she receives a boost to her critical ultimate effect, going from 125% damage to 180% per enemy. This will definitely boost her ranking against the heroes of Darkest AFK with her disruptive silence and damage reflection. May receives a small but worthy buff to her critical ultimate, going from 250% bleeding damage to 300% per enemy, also receiving a bonus to her Sacred Aura, going from 200% increase to evasion to 250%, making her all the more dangerous and hopefully countering some of the highest attack focused heroes. Rudiel has had a nice boost to his critical ultimate, going from 70% damage 10 times to now 80% damage. He does get a significant increase to his Sacred Aura too, previously gaining 25% attack at the start of each wave per enemy, now to a 33% increase, effectively doubling his attack at the start of the wave, the duration of which is also increased, going from 6 seconds to 8 seconds worth of destruction. Not only that, the damage he deals per 10% of his match HP lost increases, going from 10% to 15%. This is a well-deserved buff to a previously somewhat forgotten hero. Sir Joseph has had an interesting upgrade to his Sacred Aura, adding 15% penetration increase for 8 seconds whenever an ally dies, still twice per battle. Joseph has always packed a punch. This upgrade should help him overcome resistances against his powerful ultimate ability. Tiara 2 has had a welcome rise to her abilities, her critical ultimate going from 250% damage to 300% per enemy. The stackable mark she applies also goes up from a 25% to a 30% damage increase taken by the target. Her Sacred Aura also gets an upgrade, going from a 40% increase to attack whenever she kills an enemy to a 50% attack increase, the healing also doubling from 5% to 10%. These changes could see Tiara become a meaningful member of any team, gaining ramping damage as the battle continues. Violet sees a nice boost to her critical ultimate damage, going from 200% to 300% damage per hit, and while the multiplier for hitting a singular target does decrease from 40% to 33% damage, the overall damage is increased from an 80% real-term increase to 100% per hit. Not only this, but her Sacred Aura sees her become even more unstoppable at lower HP by increasing the defense she gains on a kill from 50% to 100%. Somewhat unknown to most, but Zik and Zack see a needed boost. Their critical ultimate going from 180% to 200% damage per shot of their ballista, and in their Imp's form going from 250% to 300% fire damage to each enemy. They also gain an additional effect to their Sacred Aura, gaining plus 15% penetration at the start of a battle, aiding all their other skills' effectiveness. They also now revive with 70% of their max HP rather than just 50%, meaning they can stick around a lot longer and cause some more mayhem. The final upgraded damager is Zeok. He is truly specialising into his role as a damager assassin and a single target killer, seeing an increase to his critical ultimate going from 100% attack gain to 150% increase. Not only that, but his Sacred Aura goes from an already significant 60% damage increase against the enemy with the highest attack at the start of a wave to a now 80% increase. So watch out, adventurers.
Now we'll move on to the tank class, and first up is Aeron. Aeron sees a spectacular increase to his critical ultimate, gaining an additional second of invincibility, going from 5 seconds to 6 seconds, whilst also still sacrificing 10% of his maximum HP, but now increasing the healing value by 150 up from 100%. Aeron's Sacred Aura sees a huge increase to his damage capabilities too, doubling from 10% increase in attack every 5 seconds to 20% increase every 5 seconds. Kondrat the Barbarian sees an increase to his damage output too. Now during a critical ultimate, he will gain 50% per normal attack hit against him, up from 33%, which now lasts longer, for 5 seconds up from the original 4 seconds. Already capable of enduring endless attacks, he can now monopolize on this and potentially deal some reasonable damage too. Gabriella has another small but not insignificant upgrade to her damage output, this time to a Sacred Aura. After tanking 25 normal attacks and reaching the final tier of her aura, and for every 5 attacks after, not only does she restore 10% of her max HP, but she sees a large 80% increase in attack for 5 seconds, up from 50%, meaning she should be taking enough hits she can potentially self-sustain and deal some respectable damage. Gorm has received a nice boost to his sustainability with his critical ultimate. Now on every critical ultimate, he will heal himself for 40% of his max HP, up from the original 25% of his max HP. Ingrid's critical ultimate has improved, becoming more disruptive to the enemies, reducing attack speed by 50% up from 25%, and also healing for up to 25, up from 15 should an enemy die by her Tiger's Paws during the critical ultimate. Kuldjar sees a small increase to his Sacred Aura, now healing 25% of his max HP per mark of vengeance on the target that dies, up from its original 20. Larian sees a damage increase to his critical ultimate. When he transforms into his bear, he stuns all enemies and now deals 20% of his maximum HP to all targets, doubled from the original 10%. Rabba gains a huge damage increase to his critical ultimate. Should the shield he applies not be broken within 5 seconds, it will break and stun all enemies for 2 seconds. Now it additionally deals 300% damage, whereas previously it didn't deal any damage. Also, his Sacred Aura sees an increase. Now whenever he passively shields low health allies. His defense increases by 200%, up from the original 150%, and his attack increases by 100%, up from the original 50%. Tao sees some changes to his critical ultimate too. The attack and defense buff he steals now lasts for 6 seconds, up from 5. The heal increases from 250% to 300% of his attack, and the damage he deals changes from 300% to 400%, none of which is insignificant, especially when facing the bosses. Tao also receives an increase to his Sacred Aura. Now, whenever he drops below 50% of his maximum HP, he increases healing received by 75%, up from the original 50%, making him a hard man to take down. Thomas gets a very welcome increase to his critical ultimate, now dealing 40% of his max HP, as a huge burst up from 30%, and now healing himself for 60% of his maximum HP, up from the 50%. But is also reduced time frame now over 3 seconds and not 5, boosting both his damage and his sustainability. Thomas's Sacred Aura increases his initial provocation by 150%, up from 100%, and also increasing the amount he loses per max HP lost, up from 10% to 15% to match. He gets a huge boost in his healing received, going from 33% to 50%. This in real terms means that with a critical ultimate, he'll be healing for 90% of his max HP over that 3 seconds. My all-time favourite, Zoreg 2, sees a great boost to his survivability. His critical ultimate now healing him for 33% of his max HP, up from the original 25%. His broth also reducing enemies' defense for more, by 50% for 3 seconds, up from 25. His aura also sees an increase, now with every 5th normal attack against him. The stun on the enemy that is applied goes from 2 seconds, up from the original 1 second.
Now we'll take a look at the support class heroes who've received an update, starting with Drogo. Drogo receives a buff to his critical ultimate, going from healing 15% of allies' max HP to 25%, which on a short cooldown could be really quite impactful. He also receives a buff to his Sacred Aura, increasing stats allies gain upon his death from a 100% increase to a 125% increase to both attack and defense. Greedo sees a slight improvement to his critical ultimate, healing the ally with the least HP by 60%, up from 50%, the ally with the second least HP by 45%, up from 40%, and the ally with the most HP remains the same at 30% healing. Merrily has quite some improvements. Her critical ultimate now lasts for 6 seconds, up from 5, and grants allies plus 40 energy, up from 30. Merrily actually sees an improvement to her base passive alongside her Sacred Aura. Her Ice Shell now triggers at 25% max HP at both levels, up from 20%. And now, her Sacred Aura can also withstand 5 normal attacks before breaking, up from 4. Nerzak 2 sees an improvement to both his base ultimate and his critical ultimate. His base ultimate now summons a tankier totem, summoning with 300% of Nerzak's attack, up from 200%, and his critical ultimate now summons with 600% of Nerzak's attack, up from 400%. This is a very welcome buff, hopefully meaning Nerzak's totem isn't just outright killed in harder areas of the game. His critical ultimate also receives a buff to its healing, now granting a 4% max HP heal per 0.5 seconds, up from 3%. Not only that, but Nerzak receives a buff to his Sacred Aura, now healing for 250% of the damage received, up from 200%. Rose gains a buff to her critical ultimate, now healing for 50% of allies' max HP, up from 33%, and reviving allies for now 30% of their max HP, up from 20%. Her Sacred Aura similarly gains an increase to the HP of allies revived, now at 60%, up from 50%. Finally, our last upgraded hero in this rebalance is the mighty Selena. Selena gains a bonus to her Sacred Aura. Now, instead at the start of each wave, reducing the attack of all enemies by 30% for 6 seconds. She will now reduce their attack by 40% for the rest of the battle. So, what are your thoughts on this rebalance? Did any hero catch your eye? Did any of your favourites catch an upgrade? Let us know in the comments. From us at the Darkest Duo, have a great day.